Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Promoter Eddie Hearn and boxer Frazer Clarke have clashed verbally about Frazer Clarke taking on another fight despite being ordered to face Fabio Wardley for the British title. So you can see here, and you can find the clip online, Eddie Hearn and Frazer Clarke disputing what's going on, and Frazer Clarke saying, yeah, I want the fight, but Hearn is saying, well, if you wanted the fight, why are you having a fight on June the 10th? So that was announced this week. So 10 June, and this is despite the British Boxing Board of Control on the 13th of April ordering Fabio Wardley and Frazer Clarke to fight. And Eddie Hearn a day or two before had said, look, you shouldn't be fighting. We're going to purse bids. It's being ordered for you to face Fabio Wardley. Why are you doing this? You know, what's this all about? If you want the fight, you have to take the fight. But despite this, Frazer Clarke and boxer had obviously had something in the works, and Frazer Clarke announced June the 10th. Opponent TBC, which basically means that it's probably not going to be anyone good. And when called on this in an interview with Boxing Social, Ben Shalom has said, oh, well, look, I mean, we were surprised about the British Boxing Board of Control ordering Frazer Clarke to fight for the British title because he's only had 6 fights. But then, curiously, he said he's operating way above British title level, which I think is highly debatable based on what we've seen. And he effectively said, if the fight happens, it all happens when it's meant to happen. Very non-committal about it happening next with Fabio Wardley. So I actually agree with Eddie Hearn. And look at this look on his face. I think this is a bit of a snaky move from Ben Shalom and Sky and Boxer to effectively schedule another fight. Basically, the order was the 13th of April, and then Frazer Clarke is meant to be fighting effectively 2 months from then. So when would this fight be? So Fabio Wardley, he's got to wait, 6 months for Frazer Clarke? I don't think Sky and Boxer, Ben Shalom, are operating in good faith here, especially with that order. And even despite them not expecting it, the reaction from Frazer Clarke was that he would take it. But Frazer Clarke must have known about the June date because obviously it was in the works. And then a few days after that, the fight gets announced for June the 10th. And you had on social media, Fabio Wardley and Frazer Clarke going back and forth. Fabio Wardley saying, I live for this. Big men, big nights, a big win. You had Frazer Clarke saying, yes, sir, both wanted it, and now it's happening, no BS, let's settle this in the ring. So you say that, and then a week later, you announced in another fight, which clearly you must have known was in the works, despite the order from the British Boxing Board of Control. And in that sort of back and forth with Eddie Hearn, Clarke was saying, well, who says I can't take another fight? And I think if you wanted the fight, you wouldn't have announced and you wouldn't have taken part or be taking part in another card in a couple of months' time out from the order of that fight, despite you having said you wanted the fight with Wardley. I mean, it just seems really bizarre. I mean, after that order, you had a situation of David Adelaide was deeply unhappy that Frazer Clarke had got the nod only having those fights, saying, look, I'm not going to wait around for Fabio Wardley. You'd also had him and Fabio Wardley, David Adelaide going back and forth on social media, a few different bits and pieces. Wardley saying, you want a tissue, David Adelaide. You had Fabio Wardley saying that Solomon Dacres, Frazer Clarke and David Adelaide had all the begging bowl out. They wanted to face him. He was trolling them, and he said that he would have a demolition job if he fought Frazer Clarke. See the graphic on screen. Solomon Dacres, and this was before the order, had come out and said, why are you coming so fast, with a trolling Fabio Wardley. And actually, if Frazer Clarke doesn't end up taking that fight with Wardley, it could end up being Solomon Dacres that gets the nod, because there is a situation, they're in the same stable, and Eddie Hearn had publicly said before the order that Solomon Dacres might be the next guy, and it's an in-house fight, so easy to make. But the whole situation is just a bit strange and bizarre that the order comes out, a week later Frazer Clarke's in another fight, despite saying, yeah, I want the fight, I want to face you, but then expecting Fabio Wardley to sit and wait and watch for 6 months effectively while Clarke gets some sort of low-level fight out of the way before he's ready to face Fabio Wardley. I think that's bizarre. I don't think that's acting in good faith. And the fact Ben Shalom, in his interview, was like, well, we didn't expect them to make it, and it'll happen when it happens. Very non-committal. I don't think he's positioning Clarke for that fight next. And the question is, well, why? Why? Frazer Clarke, based on what we've seen so far, who knows how good he really is. And despite Ben Shalom's statement saying he's operating above that level, he's not. He might have been a decorated amateur, but he's done nothing as a pro so far. We haven't seen much. And the Wardley test, maybe that would have been a step too far. And perhaps Ben Shalom and Sky are like, actually, we need to wring a little bit more out before something happens like this. I mean, Clarke as a fighter wants the fight, but why would he, accept the other fight? Why wouldn't he say to Boxer, no, I do want to take this. I told you I wanted big fights. I've got it now. And now you want to put me in something else. I mean, the whole thing's kind of bizarre. And I think Eddie Hearn is justified in his criticism of Frazer Clarke, Sky and Boxer for dragging this out. He said you shouldn't be allowed to have another fight. I think that's, in the circumstances, totally fair. How about you? It sort of seems that this fight is going to go the way of the dodo and going to go away, but it opens opportunities for David Adeleye or Solomon Dakers, two other guys who've been calling Wardley out. Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe.